a wedding ring, a symbol of love, commitment, a lifetime of shared dreams. But what happens when that symbol becomes a shackle, a harbinger of deceit and despair? This is the story of Eleanor Van Der Luydens, a woman whose life took a devastating turn just days after her fairy tale wedding. A story that unravels a web of lies, obsession, and a chilling truth that would shatter the lives of many. Eleanor, a woman who had always embraced life with open arms, was known for her infectious laughter and her unwavering strength. Born and raised in the vibrant city of Amsterdam, she had blossomed into a renowned architect, her visionary designs gracing the urban landscape with their elegance and innovation. Her colleagues admired her sharp intellect and her unwavering dedication. Her friends cherished her warmth and her infectious humor. But it was her family, her two grown children, and her young grandchildren, who held the most special place in her heart. Life had dealt Eleanor its share of challenges, including a previous marriage that, while ultimately ending in divorce, had remained amicable. But through it all, she had emerged stronger, her spirit undimmed, her belief in love unshaken. And then she met Julian DeVries. Julian, a budding artist with a captivating aura, was a stark contrast to Eleanor's more established life. He was drawn to her energy, her passion, her ability to see the world through a lens of endless possibilities. Their connection was undeniable, a whirlwind romance that swept them both off their feet. He saw in her a muse, a mentor, a woman who could inspire him to reach his full potential. She saw in him a spark of youthful energy, a chance to rediscover the thrill of new love. Their wedding was a celebration of that connection, a testament to the enduring power of love. Eleanor, radiant in a gown of ivory silk, her eyes sparkling with joy, exchanged vows with Julian under the watchful eyes of their loved ones. Champagne flowed, laughter echoed, and the air was thick with the promise of a happy future. But beneath the surface of this idyllic scene, a darkness was stirring, a secret that would soon cast a long shadow over their lives. In the days following the wedding, as Eleanor and Julian settled into their new life together, a subtle shift began to occur. Julian's charm, once so endearing, started to take on a possessive edge. His attentiveness bordered on suffocating, his concern for her well-being morphing into a controlling obsession. Eleanor, initially dismissing these changes as mere growing pains of a new marriage, found herself increasingly uneasy, a nagging sense of doubt creeping into her heart. One crisp autumn morning, Eleanor vanished. She had been planning a trip to visit her daughter in Rotterdam, a routine visit that she had made countless times before. But this time, she never arrived. Her phone went unanswered, her messages unread. Concern quickly turned to panic as her family and friends desperately tried to reach her, their calls echoing into a void of silence. Julian, when questioned by authorities, painted a picture of a loving husband bewildered by his wife's sudden disappearance. He spoke of their strong bond, their shared dreams, their unwavering commitment to each other. He expressed his deep concern, his desperate hope for her safe return. But as investigators delved deeper into the circumstances surrounding Eleanor's vanishing, they began to uncover a series of inconsistencies, a trail of disturbing clues that pointed to a far more sinister reality. What began as a missing person case soon transformed into a chilling investigation, a descent into the depths of a twisted mind. The fairy tale facade crumbled, revealing a truth far more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. Eleanor's disappearance was not a random event, a tragic accident, or a voluntary departure. It was the calculated act of a man consumed by a deadly obsession, a man whose love had morphed into a dangerous possessiveness, a man who would stop at nothing to keep his bride forever by his side. Eleanor and Julian's honeymoon was a whirlwind of exotic locales and romantic adventures. They explored the vibrant markets of Marrakech, their senses bombarded with the scent of spices and the vibrant colors of handcrafted goods. They hiked through the lush rainforests of Costa Rica, marveling at the biodiversity and the breathtaking waterfalls. They sailed on a private yacht in the turquoise waters of the Caribbean, sipping champagne under a canopy of stars. It was a dream come true, a fairy tale escaped from the everyday. Back in Amsterdam, they settled into their newly renovated canal house, a blend of Eleanor's elegant taste and Julian's artistic sensibility. The spacious living room, with its high ceilings and large windows overlooking the canal, became a gathering place for friends and family. Dinner parties were filled with lively conversation, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. Julian, a natural charmer, effortlessly entertained their guests with his witty stories and his infectious enthusiasm. Eleanor, radiant and happy, basked in the glow of their newfound love. They were the couple, their pictures gracing the society pages of local magazines. Julian, with his youthful good looks and artistic talent, became a sought-after figure in the Amsterdam art scene. Eleanor, a successful architect with a reputation for excellence, was proud of her husband's achievements, happy to support his dreams. They attended gallery openings, charity events, and exclusive parties, their presence adding a touch of glamour and intrigue. But beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect life, cracks were beginning to appear. Julian, initially content to be in Eleanor's shadow, started to crave the spotlight for himself. He grew increasingly frustrated with his lack of recognition, his artistic ambitions overshadowed by Eleanor's established career. He began to make subtle digs at her age, jokingly referring to her as the old lady in front of friends. Eleanor, initially amused by his teasing, started to feel a twinge of insecurity, a sense that her age was becoming a point of contention. One evening, after a particularly frustrating day at his studio, Julian returned home in a foul mood. Eleanor, busy with a project deadline, tried to offer him words of encouragement, but he brushed her off, accusing her of not understanding his struggles. He complained about her long work hours, her frequent trips, her lack of attention to his needs. Eleanor, tired and stressed, tried to reason with him, but he was not in the mood for rational conversation. The argument escalated, Julian's voice growing louder, his words laced with resentment and bitterness. He accused Eleanor of being self-centered, of prioritizing her career over their relationship. He demanded that she make more time for him, that she put his needs first. Eleanor, hurt and bewildered by his outburst, retreated to the bedroom, tears welling up in her eyes. She had never seen this side of Julian before, this angry, demanding stranger. The next morning, Julian apologized profusely, blaming his behavior on stress and frustration. He showered Eleanor with affection, promising to do better, to be more supportive. Eleanor, wanting to believe him, accepted his apology, but the incident left a lingering sense of unease. She couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted in their relationship, that a shadow had fallen over their once carefree happiness. As the weeks passed, Julian's possessiveness grew more pronounced. He would question her about every phone call, every meeting, every social engagement. He would check her emails and messages, his jealousy flaring at any mention of male colleagues or friends. Eleanor, feeling suffocated by his constant scrutiny, tried to assert her independence, but her attempts were met with anger and accusations. The once vibrant woman found herself shrinking under his controlling gaze, her confidence eroded, her spirit dimmed. Eleanor tried to convince herself that she was overreacting, that Julian's behavior was simply a manifestation of his deep love for her. But deep down, a growing sense of dread told her that something was terribly wrong. She was trapped in a gilded cage, her fairytale romance turning into a nightmare from which she couldn't escape. November 14th, 2023. A crisp autumn morning in Amsterdam. Eleanor awoke early, as was her custom. She had a busy day ahead, a meeting with clients in Rotterdam followed by a dinner with her daughter, Isabel. She kissed Julian goodbye, his sleepy "I love you" echoing in the quiet house. She grabbed her briefcase, the familiar weight comforting in her hand, and headed out the door, the click of her heels against the cobblestone street a familiar rhythm in her life. Her first stop was her office, a modern, light-filled space overlooking the bustling canals. She checked in with her assistant, reviewed some design plans, and made a few phone calls. Around 9:30 a.m., she spoke to Isabel, confirming their dinner plans for that evening. She sounded cheerful, excited to catch up with her daughter and hear about her grandchildren's latest antics. This was Eleanor, the efficient professional, the loving mother, her life a tapestry of interwoven roles and responsibilities. Around 10 a.m., Eleanor left the office, her sleek black Audi gliding through the city streets towards the highway. She had a client meeting scheduled for 11 a.m. in Rotterdam, a routine trip she had made countless times before. But this time, something was different. This time, she never arrived. At first, her absence was simply a puzzling inconvenience. Her clients waited, their calls going unanswered. Isabel, concerned when her mother didn't show up for dinner, tried to reach her, but her calls went straight to voicemail. As the hours passed, a sense of dread began to creep in. Where was Eleanor? Why wasn't she answering her phone? Had something happened? Julian, contacted by Isabel, seemed strangely unconcerned. He claimed that Eleanor had mentioned a last-minute change of plans, a possible overnight stay in Rotterdam. He assured Isabel that everything was fine, that Eleanor would be in touch soon. But his calm demeanor did little to quell the growing anxiety of Eleanor's family and friends. Something was wrong. Very wrong. By the following day, with still no word from Eleanor, Isabel contacted the authorities. A missing person report was filed, and the police began their investigation. Detectives interviewed Julian, probing for any clues, any indication of where Eleanor might be. He maintained his story of a last-minute change of plans, but his casual attitude and lack of concern raised red flags for the investigators. Something didn't add up. News of Eleanor's disappearance spread quickly through the city. Her face appeared on television screens, her name plastered across newspaper headlines. The once vibrant architect, the beloved mother and friend, had become a mystery, a missing piece in a puzzle that no one could solve. As the days turned into weeks, the hope of finding her alive dwindled, replaced by a growing sense of despair and a chilling question: what had happened to Eleanor Van Der Luydens? Julian sat across from Detective Inspector Hendrik van der Valk, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for his sharp intuition and unwavering determination. The fluorescent lights cast a harsh glare on Julian's face, highlighting the dark circles under his eyes and the faint tremor in his hands. He maintained his composure, his voice steady as he recounted the events leading up to Eleanor's disappearance.
Mr. DeVries, you say your wife mentioned a change of plans, a possible overnight stay in Rotterdam. Can you be more specific? Did she tell you where she was staying? Who she was meeting?
I can't recall the specifics, Inspector. She was often called away on business at the last minute. She mentioned something about a potential new client, a hotel near the harbor. I didn't press for details. I trusted her.
Julian's alibi was flimsy at best. He claimed to have spent the day of Eleanor's disappearance working in his studio, then meeting friends for dinner. He couldn't provide any concrete evidence to support his claims, no witnesses, no receipts, no phone records. His story was full of vague details and convenient gaps, raising more questions than answers.
Mr. DeVries, we've checked your phone records. There were no calls or messages between you and your wife on the day she disappeared. Isn't that unusual for a couple who, as you say, were so deeply in love?
We often went hours without speaking when she was working, Inspector. We respected each other's independence. It's not unusual. And
Van der Valk, a veteran of countless interrogations, sensed that Julian was holding back, that his calm facade masked a deeper truth. He observed the subtle tics in Julian's face, the way his eyes darted around the room, the slight tremor in his voice when pressed for specifics. Something wasn't right. But without concrete evidence, Van der Valk couldn't make an arrest. He needed more. Outside the police station, a media frenzy awaited Julian. Cameras flashed, microphones were thrust in his face, reporters bombarded him with questions. He handled the attention with remarkable composure, his voice filled with grief and concern as he pleaded for Eleanor's safe return. He painted a picture of a devoted husband, heartbroken and desperate, a man who would do anything to find his missing wife.
Eleanor is the love of my life. We had so many plans, so many dreams. I just want her back. If anyone knows anything, please come forward. Please help me bring her home.
Julian's public persona was flawless, his performance convincing. He garnered sympathy from the public, his image plastered across newspapers and television screens. He became the grieving husband, the victim of a tragic circumstance. But Van der Valk wasn't fooled. He had seen this act before, the charming facade hiding a darker reality. He knew that behind Julian's carefully crafted persona, there was something more, something sinister that he couldn't quite put his finger on. As the investigation continued, a tip came in, a whisper in the darkness that would change the course of the case. A woman claiming to be an ex-girlfriend of Julian's contacted the police, her voice trembling with fear. She spoke of a dark side to Julian, a possessive streak that bordered on obsession. She mentioned other women who had disappeared from his life without a trace. Was this the missing piece of the puzzle? Was Julian DeVries more than just a grieving husband? Was he a predator hiding in plain sight? Detective Inspector Van der Valk sat hunched over his desk, the glow of the computer screen illuminating his face. He was reviewing Julian's financial records, a labyrinth of transactions, investments, and offshore accounts. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, at least not at first glance. Julian, despite his artistic aspirations, was living comfortably, thanks to a generous inheritance from his late father and a steady stream of income from Eleanor. But as Van der Valk delved deeper, a pattern began to emerge, a series of large withdrawals and transfers made shortly after Eleanor's disappearance. One transaction, in particular, caught his attention: a wire transfer of your $500,000 to a bank account in the Cayman Islands, made just 2 days after Eleanor vanished. The account was registered to an anonymous shell corporation, making it virtually impossible to trace the ultimate beneficiary. This was the clue that changed everything. Julian, the grieving husband, had a secret, a financial motive that cast a dark shadow over his claims of innocence. Van der Valk's focus shifted from a missing person case to a potential homicide investigation. The financial trail suggested that Julian had a reason to want Eleanor gone, a reason that went beyond mere jealousy or control. Was he after her money? Had he planned her disappearance all along, using their marriage as a means to an end? The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fall into place. To understand Julian's motivations, Van der Valk consulted with Dr. Annika Blom, a renowned forensic psychologist specializing in criminal behavior. Dr. Blom reviewed the case files, analyzed Julian's interviews, and studied his behavior patterns. Her conclusions were chilling.
Julian DeVries exhibits classic narcissistic traits. He has a grandiose sense of self-importance, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy. His relationship with Eleanor was likely based on a desire for control and a need to feed his ego. When she threatened his sense of power, he lashed out, his possessiveness escalating to dangerous levels.
Dr. Blom's analysis painted a disturbing picture of a man consumed by his own desires, a man capable of manipulating and exploiting others to achieve his goals. She theorized that Julian's motive for harming Eleanor was a combination of greed and a need to maintain control. He wanted her money, but he also couldn't bear the thought of her leaving him, of her having a life outside of his influence. Armed with this new understanding, Van der Valk intensified his investigation. He re-interviewed witnesses, scrutinized every detail of Julian's alibi, and dug deeper into his past. He discovered a history of troubled relationships, a pattern of manipulation and control that extended beyond Eleanor. The picture became clearer. Julian DeVries was not a grieving husband, but a cunning predator, a master manipulator who had used his charm and charisma to conceal his true nature. The focus of the investigation shifted squarely onto Julian. He was no longer a person of interest, but the prime suspect in Eleanor's disappearance. The net was closing in, the truth about to be revealed. But would it be in time to save Eleanor? Or had Julian already silenced her forever? As Detective Inspector Van der Valk delved deeper into Julian DeVries' past, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. Eleanor Van Der Luydens was not the first woman to vanish from his life. Hidden within the seemingly charming exterior of the aspiring artist was a dark secret, a trail of broken hearts and missing women stretching back years. The first to disappear was Isabelle Dufour, a vivacious French student Julian had met during his time at art school in Paris. They had a whirlwind romance, fueled by passion and youthful abandon. But when Isabelle announced her plans to return to France after graduation, Julian became possessive, demanding that she stay with him. She refused, and shortly after, she vanished without a trace. Her family and friends searched frantically, but she was never found. The case went cold, leaving a gaping hole in the lives of those who loved her. Years later in Amsterdam, Julian became involved with Sophia van der Meer, a talented violinist who captivated him with her beauty and her passion for music. Their relationship was intense, marked by grand gestures and passionate declarations of love. But Sophia, like Isabelle, soon discovered Julian's possessive nature, his need to control every aspect of her life. When she tried to break free, he became enraged, threatening her with dire consequences. Shortly after, Sophia disappeared, leaving behind only a cryptic note and a trail of unanswered questions. The similarities between the two cases were striking. Both women were young, talented, and independent. Both had been involved with Julian DeVries. Both had vanished without a trace. Was this just a coincidence? Or was there a more sinister connection? Van der Valk, his instinct screaming that he was onto something big, expanded his investigation. He contacted authorities in Paris and other cities where Julian had lived, requesting information on any unsolved missing person cases involving young women. The results were chilling. A pattern emerged, a trail of disappearances linked to Julian DeVries, stretching across Europe like a dark shadow. There was Anya Petrova, a Russian model Julian had met in Milan, who vanished after a heated argument with him. There was Carmen Garcia, a Spanish dancer who disappeared from Barcelona shortly after Julian moved to the city. And there were others, women whose stories echoed the same tragic theme: a whirlwind romance with a charming man, followed by possessiveness, control, and ultimately, a mysterious disappearance. The realization hit Van der Valk like a thunderbolt. He wasn't dealing with a simple missing person case or even a single homicide. He was dealing with a serial offender, a predator who had been operating for years, undetected, leaving a trail of heartbreak and unanswered questions in his wake. The scope of the investigation expanded exponentially. Van der Valk assembled a task force, bringing in experts from across Europe to collaborate on the case. They analyzed the evidence, interviewed witnesses, and pieced together the timeline of Julian's movements. The picture that emerged was chilling, a portrait of a man who had perfected the art of deception, using his charm and charisma to lure women into his web of control, before ultimately silencing them forever. The hunt for Julian DeVries intensified. He was now a fugitive, a dangerous man on the run, his true nature exposed to the world. But where was he? And what had he done with Eleanor and the other missing women? The answers, Van der Valk knew, lay hidden somewhere in the labyrinth of Julian's past, a dark and twisted path leading to a truth that would shock the world. The manhunt for Julian DeVries stretched across Europe, a desperate race against time. Van der Valk and his team, working tirelessly, followed a trail of credit card charges and forged passports, closing in on their suspect. Finally, a break came, a sighting in a remote village in the Swiss Alps. Julian, disguised and using a false name, was attempting to cross the border into Italy. A team of undercover officers cornered him in a dimly lit alleyway. He resisted arrest, a brief but violent struggle ensuing, but he was no match for the determined officers. Julian DeVries, the charming artist, the grieving husband, was finally apprehended, his reign of deception brought to an abrupt end. The trial of Julian DeVries was a media sensation, captivating the nation and beyond. The courtroom was packed with journalists, onlookers, and most importantly, the families of the victims. Eleanor's children, Isabel and Thomas, sat stoically, their faces etched with grief and a quiet determination to see justice served. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence: financial records, witness testimonies, and the chilling pattern of missing women. Dr. Blom, the forensic psychologist, took the stand, explaining Julian's narcissistic personality and his manipulative tactics. Julian, represented by a high-powered defense attorney, maintained his innocence, claiming to be a victim of circumstance, a scapegoat for a series of unrelated tragedies. But the evidence was overwhelming. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached a verdict, guilty on all counts. Julian DeVries was convicted of fraud, multiple counts of kidnapping, and the murders of Isabel Dufour, Sophia van der Meer, Anya Petrova, Carmen Garcia, and Eleanor Van Der Luydens. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. A collective sigh of relief swept through the courtroom, a sense of justice finally served. Despite the conviction, a sense of emptiness lingered. The bodies of several victims, including Eleanor, were never found. Julian, maintaining his innocence to the end, refused to disclose their whereabouts. For the families, the lack of closure was a heavy burden to bear, a wound that might never fully heal. Isabel and Thomas, though grateful for the conviction, were left with the agonizing uncertainty of their mother's fate. They clung to the hope that one day they might find her remains, bring her home, and finally lay her to rest. Though the pain of loss remained, the trial brought a sense of resolution. Julian DeVries, the man who had charmed and deceived, who had stolen lives and shattered dreams, was finally held accountable for his crimes. The world was a safer place without him, and while the scars of his actions would forever remain, the families of the victims could find solace in the knowledge that justice had prevailed. They would continue to honor the memory of their loved ones, their lives a testament to the enduring power of love and the resilience of the human spirit. The case of Julian DeVries served as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. It highlighted the importance of vigilance, of recognizing the red flags of manipulation and control, and it underscored the unwavering strength of those who seek justice for the victims, those who refuse to let their stories be forgotten. In the end, the truth triumphed, and the memory of Eleanor Van Der Luydens and the other missing brides would live on, not as victims, but as symbols of resilience and the enduring pursuit of justice. The case of Julian DeVries sent shockwaves through the community, leaving many to question how such a seemingly charming and charismatic individual could be capable of such horrific acts. In the aftermath of the trial, experts and those close to the victims reflected on the tragedy, searching for answers and lessons that could prevent such tragedies in the future. Looking back, there were red flags, subtle warning signs that were missed or dismissed. Julian's possessiveness, his controlling behavior, his subtle put-downs disguised as jokes. These were all indicators of a deeper, more sinister personality. He isolated his victims from their friends and family, creating a world in which he had complete control. He used his charm and charisma to manipulate those around him, creating a false image that masked his true intentions. Dr. Blom, the forensic psychologist, emphasized the importance of recognizing these red flags in our own relationships. Pay attention to how your partner makes you feel, she advised. Do you feel safe and respected? Or do you feel controlled and manipulated? Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. She also highlighted the psychology of deception, explaining how individuals like Julian can be so convincing. They are masters of manipulation, she explained. They use charm, flattery, and even vulnerability to gain your trust and lower your defenses. They exploit your empathy and your desire to see the good in people. To protect ourselves from such individuals, Dr. Blom recommended setting healthy boundaries in relationships, maintaining strong connections with friends and family, and seeking professional help if you suspect you are being manipulated or abused. She emphasized the importance of listening to your intuition and not being afraid to ask for help. For those who have experienced similar situations, or who know someone who has, there are numerous support resources available. Organizations like the National Domestic Violence Hotline and the Victim Support Europe offer confidential counseling, legal assistance, and other vital services to help victims heal and rebuild their lives. The case of Julian DeVries is a tragic reminder of the darkness that can exist in the world, but it is also a story of resilience, of the strength of the human spirit to overcome adversity. Eleanor's children, Isabel and Thomas, though forever scarred by the loss of their mother, found solace in the pursuit of justice and in honoring her memory. They channeled their grief into advocacy, working to raise awareness about domestic violence and support other victims. Even in the face of unimaginable tragedy, there is hope. There is healing. There is the possibility of finding strength and meaning in the midst of loss. By learning from the past, by recognizing the red flags, and by supporting those who have been affected by violence, we can create a safer and more compassionate world. The story of Eleanor Van Der Luydens and the other missing brides is a story that must be told. It is a story of love and loss, of deception and betrayal, of justice and resilience. It is a story that reminds us of the importance of vigilance, of empathy, and of the enduring power of the human spirit to overcome even the darkest of times. The story of Eleanor Van Der Luydens is a stark reminder that darkness can lurk in the most unexpected places, even within the confines of a loving relationship. It underscores the crucial need for awareness, for recognizing the red flags of manipulation and control before it's too late. What are your thoughts on this case? Did you see any warning signs that were missed? Share your theories and insights in the comments below. And if you or someone you know is experiencing a similar situation, please remember that you are not alone. There is help available. If you found this video informative and thought-provoking, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more compelling true crime stories. And don't forget to hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest releases. And please, share this video with your friends and family to spread awareness about the importance of recognizing and preventing domestic violence. In the end, the case of Julian DeVries highlights the enduring strength of the human spirit. Even in the face of unimaginable loss and grief, there is the possibility of healing, of finding justice, and of honoring the memory of those we have lost. By remembering their stories, by learning from the past, and by supporting one another, we can create a world where love and compassion prevail over darkness and despair. Thank you for watching.